The bright lights of the Earth Diplomatic Council chamber cast a gentle glow on Jinnah's iridescent skin, making her appear almost ethereal as she stood before the assembled officials. Her heart raced beneath her shimmering exterior, though she maintained the composed demeanor expected of a Lyran scientist. The chamber, with its high ceilings and polished surfaces, felt both imposing and sterile. Jinnah had rehearsed this moment countless times in her mind, but nothing had prepared her for the weight of 20 pairs of human eyes studying her every move. As a stellar biologist from Lyra, she had dedicated her life to understanding different species, but now she found herself in the unusual position of being the subject of study. The genetic disorder she carried was so rare that most Lyrans considered it almost mythical. 1 in a million. Those were the odds, and somehow she had drawn the shortest straw in her species' genetic lottery. The irony wasn't lost on her. A scientist who had spent years studying genetic diversity across species now faced her own genetic crisis. The compatibility between human and Lyran DNA is remarkable, she continued, grateful for the translator device that conveyed her words without the musical undertones natural to her species' speech. Our initial studies show a 98.7% chance of successful genetic integration. Dr. Tawan sat at the central table, his dark eyes fixed on her with an intensity that made her skin ripple with unexpected colors. As the head of xenobiology at the Seoul International Space Center, his opinion carried significant weight. Jinnah noticed how he absently tapped his stylus against his tablet, a human gesture she had learned indicated deep thought. The council chamber fell into silence as the implications of her words sank in. Humans had encountered many alien species since achieving faster-than-light travel, but never had they faced a situation quite like this. The Lyrans, with their advanced biotechnology and peaceful nature, had been one of Earth's strongest allies in the galactic community. Without genetic diversity, Jinnah explained, her voice steady despite her inner turmoil, my cellular structure will begin to deteriorate. The process has already begun. She projected a hologram from her wrist device, showing the microscopic breakdown of her cells. The image rotated slowly in the air, casting blue light across the concerned faces of the council members. An older woman with silver hair cleared her throat. And there's no solution among your own people. Jinnah's skin dimmed slightly, a sign of sadness in her species. The genetic disorder affects our ability to accept Lyran genetic material. It's a cruel twist of evolution. We need genetic diversity, but our own species becomes toxic to us. Human DNA, however, has shown remarkable compatibility in our simulations. Dr. Tawan finally spoke, his voice carrying a warmth that contrasted with the clinical nature of the discussion. The implications for both our species could be groundbreaking. This could open new avenues in xenobiology research. Jinnah appreciated his scientific approach, but time wasn't on her side. I have approximately 3 Earth months before the cellular degradation becomes irreversible, she said, allowing her professional facade to crack slightly. I don't wish to pressure your species into a decision, but I must be honest about my timeline. The council members began whispering among themselves. Jinnah's enhanced hearing picked up fragments of their discussions. Ethical concerns, scientific opportunities, political implications. She stood quietly, her skin shifting through subtle patterns that reflected her anxiety. Dr. Tawan stood up, commanding attention with his presence. I propose we establish a research team immediately. We can study the compatibility factors while the council deliberates on the broader implications. Time is clearly of the essence. The council chairwoman nodded slowly. Dr. Tawan, you'll head this research initiative. Work with Jinnah to gather all necessary data. We'll reconvene in 1 week to review your findings. As the meeting adjourned, Jinnah felt a mix of hope and trepidation. She watched Dr. Tawan gather his materials, noting how he moved with purpose and efficiency. Their eyes met briefly across the chamber, and she saw something in his expression that went beyond scientific curiosity, genuine concern. Outside the council chamber, Earth's artificial evening was settling in. Jinnah stood by a large window, watching the lights of Seoul come alive below. The city sprawled out like a constellation on the ground, reminding her of the star maps she used to study back home. "Your presentation was very thorough," Dr. Tawan said, appearing beside her. "We should begin work immediately if you're willing." Jinna turned to face him, her skin brightening slightly in response to his presence. "Thank you for your support in there. I know this is an unusual request." He smiled, a gentle expression that made him look younger. "Science often leads us down unexpected paths. Shall we head to the lab? We can start reviewing your genetic data tonight." As they walked toward the research wing, Jinnah felt a small surge of hope. Perhaps here on Earth, millions of light years from home, she would find not just survival, but understanding. The halls of the Space Center echoed with their footsteps, leading them toward an uncertain future that would change both their worlds forever. The research facility hummed with activity as Tawan adjusted his microscope, stealing glances at Jinnah while she worked across the lab. 2 weeks had passed since the council meeting, and they had fallen into a comfortable routine of daily research and tests. Her presence had changed the usually quiet lab into something more vibrant, quite literally, as her bioluminescent skin cast soft, shifting patterns of light across the white walls. Taiwan found himself fascinated by the way her skin changed colors with her emotions, subtle shifts that he was slowly learning to read. When she was deep in thought, her skin took on deep blue tones. Excitement brought out swirls of bright yellow, while contentment showed as gentle waves of green. "Would you like to take a break?" he asked, noticing how she had been staring at the same data screen for over an hour. "I brought some traditional tea from home." Jinnah looked up, her large eyes blinking in a way that reminded him of Earth's owls. "That would be lovely," she said, her skin rippling with soft purple hues, a color he hadn't seen before. As Tawan prepared the tea using his small electric kettle, he explained each step of the process. "This is called barley tea," he said, measuring out the roasted grains. "My grandmother used to make it every afternoon." Jinnah moved closer, watching his hands with obvious curiosity. "The concept of drinking hot liquids for pleasure is so foreign to us," she said. "On Lyra, we consume only temperature-neutral nutrients in liquid form." The steam rose between them as he poured the tea. "How do your people socialize then?" he asked, handling her a cup carefully. Jinnah's skin flickered with amusement. "We share memories through touch," she explained, accepting the cup with delicate fingers. "When we want to bond with someone, we press our palms together and share important moments from our lives. It's very intimate." Taiwan felt his cheeks warm slightly at her words. "That sounds beautiful," he said, sipping his tea to hide his reaction. "Your way is beautiful too," she said, watching the steam rise from her cup. "There's something special about preparing food or drink for another person." She took a careful sip and her skin instantly lit up with surprise. "Oh, it's warming. All the way through." Their conversation was interrupted by the soft beep of the genetic sequencer. Both scientists turned to look at the latest results appearing on the main screen. Taiwan moved closer, analyzing the data with practiced eyes. "Your cellular degradation has slowed," he noted, pointing to a particular graph. "The treatments we've been trying seem to be helping, but they're not a permanent solution." Jinnah's skin dimmed slightly. "Time is still running out," she said quietly. "But I'm grateful for every day you help me gain." They worked in comfortable silence for the next few hours, occasionally sharing observations or theories. Taiwan found himself increasingly aware of her movements, the grace with which she handled lab equipment, the way she hummed softly while reading complex data. As evening approached, Jinnah began preparing slides of her latest blood samples. Taiwan noticed her hands trembling slightly, a new symptom of her condition. "Let me help," he said, moving to steady her hands with his own. The moment their skin touched, he felt a slight tingling sensation, and Jinnah's skin erupted in a cascade of colors he had never seen before. She quickly pulled away, her skin settling into a deep rose color. "I'm sorry," she said, obviously flustered. Sometimes our ability to share memories happens unconsciously when we feel. What did you share? Tadwan asked softly, still feeling the ghost of the tingling sensation in his fingers. Jin-Ah's skin rippled with embarrassment. A memory of watching the twin suns set on Lyra. It was my favorite place to think. She paused, then added quietly, I've been missing home more lately. Taiwan felt an unexpected ache in his chest. Would you tell me more about Lyra? About your home? Her eyes brightened, and her skin began to glow with a warm golden light. As they sat together in the lab, their cooling tea forgotten, Jin-Ah described the crystal cities of her world, the way light danced through buildings designed to capture and reflect the dual sunsets, the gardens where plants responded to touch by creating symphonies of color. Sometimes, she admitted, I wonder if I'll ever see it again. The words hung heavy in the air between them. Tadwan reached out, hesitating just before touching her hand. We'll find a solution, he promised. There's still time. Their eyes met, and for a moment, the vast differences between their species seemed to fade away. Jin-Ah's skin glowed with that same mysterious purple he had noticed earlier, and this time he understood what it might mean. The lab's automatic lights dimmed, signaling the late hour. Neither of them moved immediately, both aware that something had shifted in their relationship, something that went beyond their professional collaboration, or even their growing friendship. Finally, Jin-Ah stood, her skin settling into its normal pearlescent shade. Thank you for the tea, she said softly, and for listening. As Ta-Wan watched her leave the lab, he realized that helping her survive had become more than just a scientific challenge. It had become a mission that would test not just their professional skills, but their understanding of what it meant to bridge the gap between two very different worlds. The morning sun streamed through the lab windows, casting long shadows across the floor as Ta-Wan studied Jin-Ah's latest test results. His eyes burned from staring at screens all night, but he couldn't stop. Each day brought new signs of her condition worsening. Her skin, once brilliant and ever-changing, now looked pale and dull, like a fading star. Jin-Ah sat at her workstation, her movements slower than usual. Even the simple task of organizing data seemed to drain her energy. Tai-Wan watched as she pressed her hands against the desk to steady herself, her skin flickering weakly with exhaustion. You should rest, he said, moving to her side. We can continue the research later. She shook her head, her large eyes showing determination despite her fatigue. Time isn't something I have much of anymore, she said, attempting a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Tai-Wan pulled up a chair beside her, their shoulders almost touching. Look at these results, he said, displaying a hologram of her cellular structure. The deterioration is progressing, but it's not consistent. Some cells are resisting better than others, if we can understand why. Jin-Ah's skin rippled with a faint blue, a color he now recognized as sadness. My people spent generations studying this condition, she explained. Every possible treatment, every combination of medicines and therapies. Nothing works except genetic recombination with a compatible species. But why? Ta-Wan asked, frustration creeping into his voice. Why would evolution create such a devastating weakness? Jin-Ah turned to face him, her large eyes reflecting the morning light. We believe it was meant to prevent genetic stagnation, she said. Our ancestors theorized that it forced our species to seek out compatible beings from other worlds, to strengthen our genetic diversity. Those who carried the condition were meant to be explorers, pioneers. That's a heavy burden to carry, Ta-Wan said softly, watching as her skin shifted through shades of purple and blue. It wasn't supposed to be a burden, she replied. In ancient times, finding compatible species was easier. But as we evolved, became more complex, fewer and fewer species matched our genetic structure. Until we found Earth. Ta-Wan pulled up another set of data, showing the comparison between human and Lyran DNA. The similarity is remarkable, he agreed. But the process of genetic recombination, it would have to be intimate, Jinnah finished, her skin flushing with a rose-colored glow. Yes, that's why I can't ask it of anyone. It's too personal, too much to expect from another being. The lab fell quiet except for the soft hum of equipment. Taiwan found himself studying her profile, noting how even in her weakened state, she maintained a grace that seemed otherworldly. The thought of losing her, of watching her fade away, created an ache in his chest he couldn't ignore. "Let me try something," he said suddenly, reaching for his tablet. "If we could isolate the resistance cells and study their structure." Jinnah watched as he worked, his fingers flying over the holographic keyboard. Her skin brightened slightly with interest, showing the first signs of real energy she'd had all day. "Here," he said, projecting a new image. "These cells, they're different. They're adapting somehow." "That's impossible," Jinnah whispered, leaning closer to study the data. "No one has ever found adaptive properties in affected cells before." Their faces were close now, both absorbed in the discovery. Taiwan could see the faint patterns moving beneath her skin, like starlight through clouds. Without thinking, he reached out and touched her hand. The connection was immediate and unexpected. Images flooded his mind. Crystal spires reaching toward twin suns, the feeling of flying through aurora-lit skies, the warmth of family memories. Jinnah's skin erupted in brilliant colors, lighting up the lab like a sunrise. She pulled away quickly, but not before Taiwan caught a glimpse of something else in the shared memories. Feelings of loneliness, fear, and a growing attachment to Earth. To him. "I'm sorry," she said, her skin pulsing with embarrassment. "When we're weakened, our control over memory sharing isn't as strong." "Don't apologize," Taiwan said gently. "It was beautiful. Your world, your memories, they're beautiful." Jinnah's skin settled into a soft, steady glow he had never seen before. "Most of my people believe this condition is a curse," she said quietly. "But sitting here, working with you, sometimes I wonder if it's something else entirely." Taiwan felt his heart rate increase, understanding the weight of her words. "We'll find a way," he promised. "Whatever it takes, we'll find a way to save you." As the sun climbed higher in the sky, they returned to their work, but something had changed between them. Every shared glance, every accidental touch carried new meaning. The race against time had become more than a scientific challenge. It had become a fight for something neither of them was ready to name. Jinnah's skin continued to flicker with that new, undefined color, and Taiwan found himself hoping it meant what he thought it did. Because time was running out, and some decisions couldn't wait forever. The lab's night lighting cast soft shadows as Taiwan watched Jinnah struggle to lift a simple sample container. Her hand shook so badly that the glass vial slipped, and only his quick reflexes prevented it from shattering on the floor. Her skin, once vibrant with shifting colors, now remained a pale, lifeless gray. "You should go home and rest," he said, carefully setting the vial down. The concern in his voice was impossible to hide. "Home." Jinnah's laugh was weak. "Home is millions of light years away, and I can't even stand up without getting dizzy." Her skin flickered briefly with frustration, a dim shadow of its former brilliance. Taiwan pulled up her latest medical scans on the main screen. The cellular degradation had accelerated beyond their worst predictions. What should have taken months was happening in weeks. The numbers didn't lie. She was running out of time. "The council needs to speed up their decision," he muttered, scrolling through the data. "We can't wait another week for them to debate ethics while I'm dying." Jinnah finished softly. She leaned against the lab bench, her large eyes reflecting the glow of the screens. "We both know what the council will say. The risks of genetic recombination between species are too unknown, too dangerous to approve without years of study." Taiwan felt helpless anger rising in his chest. "Then we'll find another way. There has to be something we haven't tried." Jinnah's skin rippled with a faint purple, the color of resignation. "Taiwan," she said gently, "you've done more than anyone could have asked. You've given me weeks I shouldn't have had. But I won't let my condition force anyone into a choice they're not ready to make. The unspoken weight of her words hung between them. They both knew there was one solution: direct genetic recombination with a compatible human. The medical process would be simple, but the personal implications were enormous. It's not about being forced, Taiwan said quietly, moving closer to her. What if someone wanted to help? What if? A sudden wave of weakness hit Jinnah, and she stumbled. Taiwan caught her before she could fall, and the moment their skin touched, a flood of memories washed over him. He saw her fear, her loneliness, but also something deeper, feelings for him that mirrored his own growing emotions. "I'm sorry," she whispered, trying to pull away. "My control is getting worse." But Taiwan held on, supporting her weight. "Don't apologize. Not for this. Not for anything." They stayed like that for a moment, her skin slowly brightening where they touched. The lab's quiet hum seemed to fade away, leaving just the two of them in their own pocket of space and time. "I've studied human relationships," Jinnah said finally, her voice barely audible. "I know what this kind of genetic bonding would mean in your culture. I can't ask that of you." Taiwan helped her to a chair, but kept hold of her hand. "You're not asking. I'm offering." He paused, gathering his courage. "Jinnah, these past weeks, working with you, getting to know you, it's changed everything." Her skin flickered with that mysterious purple-gold color he'd seen before, the one he now recognized as hope mixed with something deeper. "The council would never approve," she said, but her fingers tightened around his. "Then we don't ask the council," he replied, determination hardening his voice. "This isn't about science anymore. This is about saving someone He stopped, words failing him. Jinnah's skin brightened momentarily, showing a flash of her old vibrancy. "Someone you what?" she asked, her large eyes searching his face. Instead of answering, Taiwan reached out and gently touched her cheek. The memory share was immediate, but this time it was his memories flowing into her, his growing fascination with her intelligence and grace, his admiration for her courage, the way his heart raced when she smiled. "Oh," she breathed, her skin glowing with understanding. "Let me help you," he said softly. "Not because I have to, but because I want to. Because the thought of losing you is unbearable." Jinnah's skin rippled with colors he had never seen before, beautiful, impossible combinations that lit up the dark lab. "Are you sure?" she asked. "Once done, this can't be undone. Our species will be linked forever." Taiwan smiled, touching his forehead to hers. "Maybe that's exactly what both our species need, a bridge between worlds, built on choice rather than necessity." As they sat together in the quiet lab, their futures balancing on the edge of this moment, Jinnah's skin began to glow with a steady, warm light. It wasn't the brilliant display of health she once had, but it was real and alive and full of promise. "Whatever happens," she said, "know that you've already saved me in ways that have nothing to do with genetics." The night deepened around them as they began planning their next steps, both aware that they were about to change not just their own lives, but potentially the future of human-Lyran relations forever. And somehow that didn't seem nearly as important as the way their hands remained clasped together, sharing memories, hopes, and the quiet certainty of love. The Seoul night sparkled through the observation dome of the research facility as Taiwan and Jinnah sat together, watching the stars. Her condition had worsened to the point where walking was difficult, but she insisted on coming to this spot every evening. Tonight, her skin glowed with a soft, steady light that reminded Taiwan of moonlight on water. "Tell me more about soul resonance," he said, helping her adjust the blanket around her shoulders. The evening air was cool, and her temperature regulation had become unreliable lately. Jinnah's skin rippled with gentle waves of blue and gold as she gazed upward. "See those two stars?" She pointed to a pair of bright points in the sky. "On Lyra, we have a legend that they were once two beings who loved each other so deeply that even death couldn't separate them. Their energy patterns were so perfectly matched that they transformed into twin stars. And this soul resonance, you can feel it? Taiwan asked, watching the way her skin changed colors as she spoke. It's more than feeling, she said softly. When two Lyrans are truly compatible, their bioluminescence synchronizes, their light pulses to the same rhythm. She paused, her large eyes reflecting the starlight. But it's rare. Most of my people go their whole lives without experiencing it. Taiwan noticed how her hand had drifted closer to his on the bench between them. Ever since their decision to pursue genetic recombination, touch between them had become more frequent, more natural. Each contact brought new shared memories, new understanding. "What does it feel like?" he asked, gently covering her hand with his. Immediately, warmth spread up his arm, accompanied by flashes of memory. The taste of morning dew on Lyra, the sound of crystal wind chimes in a double sunset. Jinna's skin pulsed with that special purple-gold color he'd come to associate with their moments together. "It feels like this," she whispered. "Like every cell in my body recognizes something familiar in you, even though you're from a different world entirely." The monitoring device on her wrist beeped softly, another warning about her declining health. Taiwan felt his heart clench at the sound. They were running out of time, and the council was still debating. "We could leave," he said suddenly. "There are research outposts on other planets where they're less bound by Earth regulations." We cooled. "No," Jinnah interrupted gently. "I won't let you throw away your career, your life here. Whatever happens, it has to be legal, approved. Your people need to understand and accept this." Her skin dimmed slightly with the effort of speaking, and Taiwan pulled her closer, sharing his warmth. The memory share intensified with the increased contact. He felt her fear, her determination, and underneath it all, a deep current of love that took his breath away. "The council meets tomorrow," he reminded her. "I've prepared all the data showing the progression of your condition. They can't ignore the evidence anymore." Jinnah turned to face him, her large eyes serious. "Even if they approve, there's no guarantee the procedure will work. No human and Lyran have ever attempted this kind of genetic bonding before. The risks are worth it," Taiwan finished firmly. "Every moment I spend with you confirms that." As if in response to his words, Jinnah's skin began to pulse with a steady rhythm, like a heartbeat made of light. Taiwan watched in amazement as the glow spread to where their hands touched, and for a moment, he could have sworn his own skin shimmered in response. "That's never happened before," Jinnah breathed, staring at their joined hands. "With anyone, even among my own people." The implications of what they were seeing hung in the air between them. This wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about something their two species had never dreamed possible. "Soul resonance," Taiwan said softly, "between a human and a Lyran." Jinnah's skin erupted in a display of colors so beautiful it brought tears to his eyes. "The council needs to see this," she said urgently. "This isn't just about saving one life anymore. This could change everything we thought we knew about interspecies connections." They stayed under the stars until Jinnah's strength began to fade, her light dimming like a setting sun. As Taiwan helped her back to her quarters, they both knew tomorrow would bring either the end or the beginning of something extraordinary. "Whatever the council decides," Jinnah said, as they reached her door, "knowing you, experiencing this connection, it's made everything worth it." Taiwan touched his forehead to hers, letting their energies mingle one last time that night. In the shared memories that flowed between them, he saw their possible future, a bridge between two species, a love that defied biology, a hope that burned brighter than any star. "Tomorrow," he promised, "we'll show them what's possible when two worlds truly connect." Jinnah's skin glowed with that perfect purple gold one final time before she disappeared behind her door, leaving Taiwan standing in the corridor, his hand still tingling with the memory of their touch, and his heart full of tomorrow's possibilities. The council chamber buzzed with tension as Taiwan presented the final evidence. The large screens displayed the remarkable footage from the previous night, the synchronized bioluminescence between human and Liran, a phenomenon that had the assembled scientists leaning forward in their seats with undisguised wonder. Jinnah sat in a hovering medical chair, her skin barely glowing now, but her large eyes remained bright with hope. The council members whispered among themselves as they watched the recorded data, seeing the undeniable proof of something they had believed impossible. The genetic compatibility extends beyond mere biological functions, Taiwan explained, his voice steady despite his racing heart. What we're seeing is a form of resonance that matches ancient Lyran texts about their most successful genetic recombinations. The head of the council, Dr. Song, removed her glasses and studied Jinnah carefully. And you're certain this is what your people call soul resonance? Jinnah's skin flickered briefly with confirmation. In all our records, this level of energy synchronization has only occurred between perfectly compatible pairs. We never imagined it could happen with another species entirely. The medical team had already reviewed all the procedures and safety protocols. Everything was in place. They were just waiting for the final approval. Taiwan held his breath as the council members conferred quietly. Dr. Song finally spoke, her voice carrying the weight of history. In light of this extraordinary evidence, and given the critical nature of Jinnah's condition, we approved the genetic recombination procedure. But she added, looking directly at Taiwan, this will be thoroughly documented for future research. Relief flooded through the room. Jinnah's skin burst into the brightest display it had managed in weeks, lighting up the chamber with waves of joy. Taiwan fought to maintain his professional composure, but his smile betrayed his emotions. The medical bay had been prepared in advance. As they wheeled Jinnah in, the specialized equipment hummed to life. The procedure would take several hours, during which their genetic materials would be carefully combined and reintroduced to Jinnah's failing system. Are you scared? Taiwan asked softly as the medical team prepared them both. Jinnah's skin rippled with gentle colors. No, she replied. For the first time since I learned about my condition, I feel complete peace. The procedure itself was both more and less dramatic than anyone expected. As their genetic materials combined, Jinnah's skin began to pulse with increasing strength. The monitors showed her failing cells regenerating, accepting the new genetic code with unprecedented efficiency. Taiwan remained conscious throughout, watching in amazement as his own skin seemed to develop a faint, barely perceptible glow where the medical sensors attached. The doctors muttered excitedly about unexpected synchronization patterns and revolutionary implications. Hours passed like minutes. When it was finally complete, Jinnah opened her eyes to a room full of astonished faces. Her skin glowed with health, brighter than ever before, but with subtle new patterns that reminded Taiwan of his own genetic signature. How do you feel? He asked, reaching for her hand. The moment they touched, both their skins lit up with matching patterns, his faintly, hers brilliantly, but perfectly synchronized. The medical team scrambled to record the phenomenon. I feel. Jinnah paused, searching for words. I feel like I found something I never knew I was missing. Like part of me was always meant to resonate with your energy. The recovery period was shorter than anyone predicted. Within days, Jinnah was walking again, her strength returning rapidly. But the most remarkable changes were the ones nobody had expected. The genetic recombination had created something entirely new. Jinnah retained all her Lyran abilities, but now she could control her bioluminescence with greater precision. And Taiwan, while still appearing fully human, had developed a subtle sensitivity to her energy patterns. Watch this, Jinnah said one evening. A week after the procedure, she placed her hand on a blank wall, and her light created patterns that Taiwan could not only see but somehow feel, like music in his soul. Our people will remember this, she said, turning to him with eyes that shimmered with joy. You've opened the door to a deeper understanding between our species. This isn't just about saving one life anymore. It's about showing what's possible when two worlds truly connect. Taiwan pulled her close, watching as their energy patterns synchronized automatically. "I think we've done more than that," he said softly. "We've proven that love really can transcend the barriers between stars." The research facility buzzed with activity as scientists studied their unique bond, but Taiwan and Jinna hardly noticed. They were too busy exploring their new connection, learning how their combined genetics had created something beautiful and unprecedented. Each evening, they would stand under the stars, their joined hands creating light shows that drew amazed crowds. But for them, the real miracle was simpler. The way their souls had found each other across the vast distance of space, proving that some connections were truly universal. "What happens now?" Jinna asked one night, her skin glowing with contentment. Taiwan smiled, feeling the warm pulse of their shared energy. "Now," he said, "we show the universe what's possible when we let love guide us between the stars." Their story would indeed be remembered, but not just as a scientific breakthrough. It would be remembered as the moment when two species learned that the greatest discoveries come not from laboratories or protocols, but from hearts brave enough to reach across the void and find each other. 5 years had passed since the groundbreaking genetic recombination procedure that saved Jinna's life and changed the relationship between humans and Lyrans forever. The International Space Center's observation deck offered a perfect view of the sunset, painting the sky in colors that matched the gentle waves of light flowing across Jinna's skin. Taiwan stood beside her, their hands intertwined, watching as the first stars appeared in the darkening sky. Their story had spread across both worlds, inspiring changes neither of them could have imagined on that desperate day when Jinna first arrived on Earth. The medical bay had been prepared in advance. As they wheeled Jinna in, the specialized equipment hummed to life. The procedure would take several hours, during which their genetic materials would be carefully combined and reintroduced to Jinna's failing system. "Are you scared?" Taiwan asked softly as the medical team prepared them both. Jinna's skin rippled with gentle colors. "No," she replied. "For the first time since I learned about my condition, I feel complete peace." The procedure itself was both more and less dramatic than anyone expected. As their genetic materials combined, Jinna's skin began to pulse with increasing strength. The monitors showed her failing cells regenerating, accepting the new genetic code with unprecedented efficiency. Taiwan remained conscious throughout, watching in amazement as his own skin seemed to develop a faint, barely perceptible glow where the medical sensors attached. The doctors muttered excitedly about unexpected synchronization patterns and revolutionary implications. Hours passed like minutes. When it was finally complete, Jinna opened her eyes to a room full of astonished faces. Her skin glowed with health, brighter than ever before, but with subtle new patterns that reminded Taiwan of his own genetic signature. "How do you feel?" he asked, reaching for her hand. The moment they touched, both their skins lit up with matching patterns, his faintly, hers brilliantly, but perfectly synchronized. The medical team scrambled to record the phenomenon. "I feel..." Jinna paused, searching for words. "I feel like I found something I never knew I was missing. Like part of me was always meant to resonate with your energy." The recovery period was shorter than anyone predicted. Within days, Jinna was walking again, her strength returning rapidly. But the most remarkable changes were the ones nobody had expected. The genetic recombination had created something entirely new. Jinna retained all her Lyran abilities, but now she could control her bioluminescence with greater precision. And Taiwan, while still appearing fully human, had developed a subtle sensitivity to her energy patterns. "Watch this," Jinna said one evening. A week after the procedure, she placed her hand on a blank wall, and her light created patterns that Taiwan could not only see but somehow feel, like music in his soul. "Our people will remember this," she said, turning to him with eyes that shimmered with joy. "You've opened the door to a deeper understanding between our species. This isn't just about saving one life anymore. It's about showing what's possible when two worlds truly connect." Taiwan pulled her close, watching as their energy patterns synchronized automatically. "I think we've done more than that," he said softly. "We've proven that love really can transcend the barriers between stars." The research facility buzzed with activity as scientists studied their unique bond, but Ta-1 and Jin-Ah hardly noticed. They were too busy exploring their new connection, learning how their combined genetics had created something beautiful and unprecedented. Each evening, they would stand under the stars, their joined hands creating light shows that drew amazed crowds. But for them, the real miracle was simpler. The way their souls had found each other across the vast distance of space, proving that some connections were truly universal. "What happens now?" Jin-Ah asked one night, her skin glowing with contentment. Tai-1 smiled, feeling the warm pulse of their shared energy. "Now," he said, "we show the universe what's possible when we let love guide us between the stars." Their story would indeed be remembered, but not just as a scientific breakthrough. It would be remembered as the moment when two species learned that the greatest discoveries come not from laboratories or protocols, but from hearts brave enough to reach across the void and find each other. 5 years had passed since the groundbreaking genetic recombination procedure that saved Jin-Ah's life and changed the relationship between humans and Lyrans forever. The International Space Center's observation deck offered a perfect view of the sunset, painting the sky in colors that matched the gentle waves of light flowing across Jin-Ah's skin. Tai-1 stood beside her, their hands intertwined, watching as the first stars appeared in the darkening sky. Their story had spread across both worlds, inspiring changes neither of them could have imagined on that desperate day when Jin-Ah first arrived on Earth. The research center below them bustled with activity. Dozens of Lyran scientists now worked alongside humans, their combined knowledge leading to breakthroughs in medicine, technology, and cultural understanding. Each new discovery strengthened the bonds between their peoples. "Look," Jin-Ah said softly, pointing to a bright point of light emerging in the twilight. "That's Lyra's star. Sometimes I still can't believe how far we've come." Their shared genetic bond had grown stronger over the years. Tai-1's skin now carried a subtle luminescence that only showed in darkness, while Jin-Ah's patterns had taken on uniquely Earth-inspired rhythms. Together, they had become living proof that evolution could take unexpected and beautiful paths. "The new exchange program starts next week," Tai-1 reminded her, feeling the excitement pulse through their connected hands. 10 human Lyran pairs, all showing signs of potential resonance. Jin-Ah's skin rippled with joy at the thought. After their success, other compatible pairs had been discovered, humans and Lyrans whose energy patterns naturally aligned. Each new pair brought fresh insights into the possibilities of interspecies connection. "Remember when we thought this would only save my life?" Jin-Ah asked, her large eyes reflecting the last rays of sunlight. "Now we're helping to save both our species from isolation." The medical advances from their case had extended far beyond genetic disorders. Their unique bond had led to discoveries about cellular regeneration, energy transfer, and even consciousness itself. Both Earth and Lyra had been forever changed by what they learned. A group of young scientists passed by, some human, some Lyran, all working together with an ease that would have seemed impossible just a few years ago. One young Lyran's skin glowed with patterns that clearly mimicked Earth's aurora borealis, a growing trend among the younger generation. Perhaps this was always meant to be, Tai-1 mused, watching the last colors fade from the sky. Not just for us, but for both our peoples. Jin-Ah's skin pulsed with happiness as she took his hand. "On Lyra, we have a saying. The stars guide us to our destiny. They certainly guided me to Earth, and to you." Above them, the night sky filled with stars, each one representing countless possibilities for the future. Their shared energy created gentle patterns of light that danced across the observation deck's windows, telling their story in the language of luminescence. The Space Center had become more than just a research facility. It was a beacon of hope for both species. Regular shuttles now traveled between Earth and Lyra, carrying scientists, artists, and dreamers eager to learn from each other. The Council wants us to speak at next month's Interstellar Conference, Jinnah said, her skin showing traces of amused pride. Apparently, we're still the most successful example of human-Lyran integration. Taiwan smiled, feeling the warm pulse of their connection. Success doesn't begin to describe it, he said softly. We didn't just integrate our species, we showed the universe that love truly is universal. As if in response to his words, their combined energy created a new pattern, one that merged Earth's geometric precision with Lyra's flowing organic shades. It was a perfect symbol of their shared future, two different worlds finding harmony in their differences. A shooting star streaked across the sky, and both of them felt the old Earth tradition of making the wish stir in their hearts. But they had no need for wishes anymore. Everything they had ever dreamed of was already here, in the miracle of their connection and the hope it brought to both their worlds. What do you think the next 5 years will bring? Jinnah asked, her skin shimmering with curious anticipation. Taiwan pulled her close, their energies merging into a single brilliant display. Whatever comes, he said, we'll face it together. After all, we have the stars to guide us. As night fully embraced the Space Center, their combined light painted stories across the darkness. Tales of love that crossed the boundaries of species, of courage that defied biological limits, and of a future where the distance between stars was no longer a barrier to understanding. Their legacy would continue to shine, guiding others who dared to reach across the void and find connection in unexpected places. For in their story lay the truth that both species had always known but never fully understood, that in the vast expanse of space, love was the most powerful force for change, and the heart's light could outshine even the brightest stars. End of story.